Welcome to the Business Spotlight, where today the spotlight is shining on James Ford from Locamed. Welcome, James.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice to have you here. Looking forward to this conversation. To start us off with, can you please tell our viewers a little bit more about you and the business, please?
Yes, well, so I'm managing director of a company called Locamed, and predominantly what we do is we sell disposable laparoscopic products to the NHS, to private hospitals, and also internationally as well.
Okay.
A laparoscopic, in simple terms, basically means keyhole surgery in the abdominal area, so your stomach area.
Okay. And you've been going, I saw on your website, you've been going since 2000?
Yeah, going since 2000. As I say, it started off literally just being a one-man band, if you like. So that's myself. My experience was initially was in the pharmaceutical industry.
Right.
And then about in 1996, I moved across to medical devices, which is a slightly different area of the industry. And I worked for some quite large organizations selling disposable laparoscopic and surgical staplers.
Okay.
And then I moved into what they would call distribution management for a couple of, well, actually for two medical device manufacturers in the US. So basically I was in charge of EMEA, which was Europe, Middle East and Africa. And from that, developed quite a bit of experience and knowledge in the industry. And it was always my dream to work or to set up my own business. So from that experience, I was able to do that.
So what was the changing point for you? Where, like, did anything happen for you to go, right, now's the time?
I think ultimately it'd always been my dream to start my own business. I like the concept or principle of it. The driving force for me, I think, just came from a personal ambition, which was to be my own boss, to make my own decisions. I think sometimes you get to that point where you work for large corporates. Obviously, you learn a lot, you develop a lot of experience.
Yeah.
But I think there's also a little part of you which sort of thinks, oh, I think I can do this better myself. So I think that was probably the main key driver for me. It wasn't particularly to do with money, and I think from a personal perspective, starting a business purely to make a lot of money shouldn't really be. You've got to have a sort of passion and driver to be your own boss, I think.
Yeah. And then obviously you start out by yourself. If we take you back to the starting days of those, what was that experience like for you?
I think what I would say is it was exciting. It was very nervy at times, and yeah, there were difficult times. I mean, it's a simple case of I think a few things came into line. I had a manufacturer in Germany who was desperate to develop the UK market. He knew that I was looking to do my own thing. The money that I had to start the business was there, although very, very tight, because obviously, at the time I had I'm married with three very young children. You have the mortgage, you have those kind of debts. And I sort of did a calculation and I thought, well, if we can keep things lean, I think for 6 to 8 months, there's an opportunity to see if we can take this somewhere.
Okay.
So that was if you like, an exciting time, but also kind of nervous. And also, I think in the industry I'm in, it's a very small industry. And I think once you potentially sort of say, oh, I'm going out on my own, it's quite hard for you to get back into the industry in terms of, if it doesn't work out, become an employee again. But is this guy looking to do this again, kind of thing? So there's a few things that go
on. So technically, you had no plan B.
Technically, I had no plan B, and I think if you're going to commit yourself fully to starting a business, you shouldn't really have that, because I think sometimes you can, I don't know, if it gets difficult, think, oh, I'll fall into plan B. I'll go to plan B because it
Yeah,
could be
yeah.
an easier option. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I would agree with that in my experience, but there you
yeah.
go. What were some of the things that you maybe at that initial stage that either you hadn't anticipated, or the things that you found hard, or that were very different going from an employee into a business kind of environment, or as a business owner?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. There's probably a lot of facets to that point, to be honest. I think in terms of, what I found was it would have been quite easy to get large, to ask people to invest, to put money behind it and everything else. But what I wanted to do was start off in a small, controlled way. So, and what I mean by that is, you do a lot of the tasks yourself. You get involved. I mean, it could be quite easy to get an accountant to go in to look to set the business up, and it could be very easy to get them to manage your accounts and so on. But what I thought was, if you start small, you can manage a lot of those things yourself. To be frank, with a bit of reading. I think back then it was even a basic Excel spreadsheet to work out things like VAT and bits and pieces like that. But and also in terms of shipping goods yourself, you understand the principles of it sounds very, very simple thing to talk about, but if you start getting quite a few orders, you need to be able to supply, you need to be able to have a good system in place for that. So what I'm saying from it, I think, is if you're starting small, these things they evolve. And I personally like that concept of doing that. Once you've shown proof of concept, you think, oh, the business is sustainable. You could look then to getting further investment and so on. But I mean, I never did that. I made a point of just trying to build a business and be self-funding, to not depend on loans or investors or whatever. It's just a guiding principle for me.
Okay. And then obviously you grow the business over the last 20 years. Some of the key challenges with growing a business?
Yeah, I mean, now we're a team of 16, 17 people. We're spread over 2 sites in the UK. We've got a warehouse and distribution function. We have an office with at least 6 people in there at any one time trying to manage the business. I think that all comes with its own challenges. Finding the right key people, ensuring you get the best from them as best you can, and it's a different form of challenge, but it's actually quite enjoyable. And in fact, if you've come from experience, if you've worked for a number of organizations, what I find is you can take the best bits that you found those companies did, and the bits you didn't agree with, you can separate, or not have involved in the business, which I think is quite key, really.
Yeah, love that. Talk me through what your business does really well.
Why it does well?
No, what you do really well. What are you guys really good at?
I think what we're really good at is, I mean, it's quite niche what we do.
Yeah.
To be frank, I mean, there's very few companies involved in it. I mean, obviously there's some of the big guys, and we are comparatively small compared to them. But I think what we believe in is the quality side of what we do. So, before we release a product, before we test and trial it, quite often what we do with a lot of it is we label the product as a Locamed product. But before we go through that process, we have it as a distributed product. We just sell it locally with some key customers. We get some honest feedback on it. Jones, I don't think this is good, or it will be good if you could change this. And the reason for that is if the product is good and works well, you don't have issues with customers. You don't want to be in a situation where you're dealing with lots of complaints potentially or concerns. So I think what I would say is don't rush into a product. Always go into it, look at it carefully before you do any big launch.
Like that. So you just mentioned that you've got a couple of competitors that are larger than you, and a lot of people would potentially instantly see that as a big challenge, where I might look at that as an opportunity. Like, what's the advantage to being a small fish against the big guys?
Yeah, I think you can react. The big guys, I mean, having worked for the big guys, I felt when I worked for them, the frustration quite often would be a decision that could be made has to go through a very, very long process of approval.
Yeah.
If there's a product change that needs to happen, it needs to go through various sign-offs. Whereas if you're a smaller company, you can react a lot quicker. And it's not just the product itself, it could be customer service levels where you get an idea or a marketing strategy that you want to try and do. So that you're able to, react a lot quicker than they do. And I think in terms of customers, they appreciate that an awful lot more.
Yeah.
So I think that's how you build that kind of reputation with them. And also, there's simple things that we always abide by, which is if the customer has got a query or a problem, you just react to it straight away. Go and see them face to face, have a discussion.
Yeah.
Because quite often, I find that even if they perceive they've got a big issue or something, if you go and see them, it actually isn't. And they do get very annoyed with some of the bigger companies, which just seem to deal with this kind of standard approach. I mean, I think we've all dealt with it. Sometimes, a local tradesman who you depend on. You deal with large organisations. I think we've had one with various companies, British Gas and everything else, where the reaction time seems to go. You seem to get lost in this this structure they have for logging problems, and sometimes it doesn't feel like you're a customer; it just feels like you're a number. So it's just avoiding that.
Great, love that. As a business owner, what still keeps you awake at night?
Oh, that's a good question.
I have been known, James. I have been known.
Yeah. What keeps you awake at night? It's funny. I think when you're a business owner, sometimes you can obsess about some of the smaller things, which I find is maybe it's just a personal issue I have, which is if there's something not quite right, or we've lost a customer for various reasons, a competitor, you can find yourself getting a little bit annoyed and anxious about it. Although in the great scheme of things, it might be inconsequential to the business.
Yeah.
So I think if you're a business owner and you are involved and doing a good job, I think sometimes you can beat yourself up a little bit, which is a hard process to go through, and it's probably something you should reflect on yourself. But maybe that's what is part of being a good business owner. I don't know.
Do you find it fairly easy to switch off, either when you go home, when you go on holiday? I mean, we talked about you just being back from holiday before we started recording this, but is it easy for you to switch off?
I think more so now, and I think if you've got the right team of people in place, which I believe we have, you feel confident to walk away from the business at times and leave it in the hands of others. And so, I'd say if you've got a good team, it takes the edge away.
Okay.
Definitely.
What's your big goal for the business? What are you working towards?
Okay, I think ultimately, as I said before, we have been approached in the past for to be acquired and everything else. But it's an interesting one. I've listened to the discussions, and for me, that doesn't interest me at the moment in that, well, in fact, at all at this stage, because what I'm finding is when I found in those kind of discussions, I've worked out that once you've sold the business, pretty much your entrepreneurial side has gone, and that there's a general principle that for a period of time when you're working for them, you won't be able to work or do other things. And although, you know, the prospect of getting a lot of money for your business is appealing, if that's what, you know, floats a lot of people's boats, that's great. For me, it's not totally about the money, and it's about, within the existing business, coming up with new ideas again to see how we can move forward. That's the thing that excites me.
Okay.
And in fact, what I've found is, if you have your own business as well, there's businesses which kind of overlap. I mean, there's a couple we've just started, and it's kind of a Venn diagram, if you like. There are overlaps with Locamed, but it didn't make sense to keep it all under one umbrella.
Okay.
So other opportunities can develop from that as well. So I think that part of it keeps my interest in.
So you're not done yet, is what you're saying?
I don't think I'd ever be done. I mean, people ask, you know, can you retire? I mean, theoretically, I could retire, but it's not of interest to me.
Okay.
And in fact, it's one of the discussions I say. I have a lot of people who are employed, doing very well in their various sectors, and one of the discussions is always, you know, retirement. They can't wait to retire. And I said, well, be careful what you wish for, because I've put myself in a position in the past few years where I thought I won't work. I don't need to work.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't think it's necessarily a business owner's thing. I don't think it's necessarily an entrepreneur's thing. I think we all have it in ourselves. Every human has this need to feel like they're being useful in society.
Yeah.
It's probably a bad trait that we all have. But doing nothing, I think, in some people, I don't think it's a healthy thing. And when I've had discussions with people who've gone to, you know, who've talked about it, so be careful what you wish for, because, you know, if you've worked as a partner in a law firm for years and years, I think it's very hard to go and sit in the garden and just do marigolds the next 10, 20 years.
Maybe you need to think of something slightly more exciting than that, instead of that. Looking that's
what I say to them. Yeah, everybody wants to use their brain, and I think the one thing I would say, if you own your own business, I think you do have the opportunity to explore different arenas, and I think that's a great opportunity of having your own business.
Yeah,
have those options.
I love that. I also take that your business is fairly recession proof.
I suppose you could argue yes, it is. I mean, people are always ill. People always need operations.
Yep.
And I think that's been quite a benefit to us. The other side of the business is it's a consumable business, so it's disposable laparoscopic products. And despite the slight environmental concerns with that, it's what the NHS and healthcare demands, you know, because of the various restrictions you have on using things on patients. So there's a kind of how should I put it, repeat business element to it, which I think if people are looking to start a business, I would always say, if it has got that repeat element to it, in other words, once you've got the customer, they come back for more, it's more easy to predict a growth pattern for your business, and you don't tend to get the peaks and troughs, you know, yeah. And you're not just as good as your last job you've just done. So there is that element. It is you are right to a degree, relatively recession proof. The pressures on our sector tends to be, well, as we've experienced recently, the strikes in the NHS, so we tend to find those drops then because they're not doing as much operating. But half our business is international anyway, so we export. So that tends to, it's quite good when you've got business in different countries, because a bit like during COVID, for example, where we stopped operating here, they were still operating in other countries because the cycle of COVID was hitting at different times. So although we experienced a drop, the other parts of the business were sustaining the turnover, if you like.
And then in your case, potentially you might have been impacted by the whole supply chain, distribution, the challenges that comes with that, or has that been all right for you?
In terms of what the COVID, or just supply, or in general?
Well, it's been a bit of a combination, hasn't it? Some of the people I've spoken to on these has been a combination of Brexit slash then COVID slash
Yeah.
Royal Mail and courier situations. So it's
Oh yeah.
and then we're not talking about materials or
No.
all of that.
Well, you're right. I mean, in terms of shipping, I mean, we get containers of products that come in from all around the world, and that's been quite hard because at one point, I can't remember, I think we used to pay about £4,000 for a container, and they went up to about £18,000, which, to be honest, I think it's all the shipping companies making up for the loss of their turnover during COVID.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think they're kind of a monopoly, the container businesses. But in terms of supply and products in general, I think we've been quite lucky, and we always keep quite a large stock of products ourselves anyway. We always keep at least 4 months stock for the hospitals and so on, because we can get, and we've got the cash to do it. So you know, it hasn't been too bad for us in that regard.
So where's your industry going? You kind of already alluded to it a little bit already. You know, businesses are becoming a little bit more planet environmentally friendly. But what are you expecting to happen in your industry in the next 5 years?
I think it's quite well in our industry. I don't want to get keep it too boring for people who actually don't work in this sector, but regulation in the medical device sector has got quite involved. Well, more difficult, should we say, to achieve, and the guidelines are a lot more stricter than they used to be. Okay. So I think from our perspective, we've probably increased our expenditure on regulatory, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 times over the last year. It's good, obviously, because we're talking about patient safety. But the difficulty with that is because the costs are so high now to bring new products to the market, you aren't seeing so many new products coming to the market. And in fact, you're seeing some existing products going off the market because companies can't afford to put the money in to do the testing that's now required. So I think what we're seeing now is a lot of new innovation in medical devices, I would say, is being a little bit hampered or significantly hampered. Now, the downside of that is, from a patient perspective, they're not probably going to see too many new items or innovations coming out to make their procedures better for them, or to make it easier for the hospitals. But it also means that it's a bit more static in terms of, I think the product life cycle of a lot of the products we have now will be a lot longer, purely because of it. So it's frustrating for me in some regards, because I like innovation, I like new things, but it has its benefits from a business perspective, I suppose.
And I guess potentially equally opportunities might be cash related in that case, but there is an opportunity to continue with some investment into newer products and be on the front end of that wave as and when that's ready to come back.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. I would say we were probably able about 4 years ago, to bring say 2 or 3 new products to market each year. I think the way it's going now, we'd be lucky to probably get 1 new product coming to market a year. The costs make it too prohibitive now to do that, and it's a shame, but you know, there's always opportunities because of it, and it's a bit a bit like Brexit, as you were saying. I think although I didn't vote for it, I don't believe in Brexit as it happens. I think
well, you're talking to a European in this country, you know what I mean?
Well, it's probably controversial. Some people listen to this, but
I try to stay away from that topic. But yeah,
but it's how should I put it? Yeah, it has made life a bit more interesting. As it happens, we've developed another business as a result of it, which is to do with being a UK responsible person, helping businesses come into the UK. Okay. So I suppose what I'm saying in that regard, whatever your politics is or are on Brexit, and although I voted to remain, there's been another opportunity that's come from that. And I think that's the thing as a business owner. It's you can't affect change. particularly when it comes to legislation.
Yeah.
All you've got to do is sit, listen to it, understand it, and just work out how to react to it.
And actually, I'd like to add to that, probably, because I've seen that in the last couple of years. I think every situation has got a downside and an upside, and you could just focus on the downside all the time and never make any changes, or you could look at actually what are the opportunities here, like you already said, and start another business out of it, or whatever that may be. There's always an upside to every situation. You just might need to look in a different direction.
But I think that's totally it. And I think that's, if you're running a business, you've always got to treat those situations like that as best you can. And don't get me wrong, there's times where you do huff and think, oh, there's a problem here, but you think, okay, how can we try and maximize this, or learn from it? Or there's always a positive that comes out of something. As you say, for every action, there's an opposite equal reaction. So you can get that balance, I think.
Yeah. But I think sometimes business owners, I don't know how many of your connections that you see within business. I think sometimes we have that laser focus, and because you have that laser focus, you forget to look a little bit further out. And then if you fall in that category where a new legislation or something like that has an impact, it's so easy to just focus on that without then looking further out.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think you're right. You've just got to keep your eyes open and try and think of how you can make the best of something like that. So yeah, it's good.
What kind of people have you surrounded yourself with to help you be the best version of you over the years?
That's a good question. It's funny. I think the one thing I have learned is always, you've got to employ the people with the skill set you want.
Okay.
That's predominantly it. I think the difficulty is never base it on personality. If I had every employee had a similar personality to me, the business wouldn't work.
Correct.
And we've got different skill sets, different types, profile of person, and all of them, bring their skill and knowledge to the business, and they all contribute to it. So I think that's what I would always say. I mean, you could, if you put them all together, you think, well, quite a motley crew. But they all get on really well, and they all function brilliantly together. And I think, always be careful, always base it on the skill set.
Nice, like that. Okay, but that's from a team perspective. So what about other people around you? Because as business owners, being in business can be quite lonely. And I often talk about who's your tribe, who are the the people that you go to when you've got any challenges, like who helps you be a good version of James.
Well, I think particularly as the business has evolved, there are people I know who have businesses outside the sector, and they tend to be the people that I know. I mean, some of them are friends who have businesses, some are friends of friends who have businesses, and even at a party, you talk to these people, they have their own business. So how have you dealt with this and dealt with that? Because I find 80% of the issues are exactly the same across all sectors.
Correct.
Whatever it might be. So I think I learned a lot from that, in particular in initial stages, and still am. And I think we all help each other, and we also counsel each other a little bit as well. Do you think I'm doing the right thing on this? And what do you reckon? So they tend to be my, if you like, out of work people I depend on. Or a sounding board at least.
Okay. Love that. Anyone that I don't really like using the word look up to, but someone that you find an inspiration, and it's not necessarily about copying, but someone whose style you love, or whose success that you kind of take interest from.
Yes, I would say, well, the first manager I had in the pharmaceutical industry, I won't mention names, just in case she gets embarrassed, but there's probably two managers' styles that I remember got the best out of me and seemed to get the best out of everybody else.
Okay.
And I think the main thing I learned from them, which is an interesting one, is admit when you're wrong as a boss.
Nice.
Because I find it diffuses things. And if you are wrong, you should admit you're wrong to something. Or, you know, if you misheard something and you've got to say, oh, sorry, that was my fault. That's my beef. Or that decision, yeah, it was mine. And yeah, we messed up, didn't we? Because of that. So I think that's the one thing I've learned. And I think I like to feel that's in my personality anyway. But I saw this early on in my career with two managers, which I thought were brilliant. And then there are certain people who you work with who thought that style is atrocious. I'm not. So yeah, there are always a couple of people I will look up to. They probably know who they are if they ever watch this. So
I leave up to you. Some people have named people, others haven't. So totally up to you on that one. quite happy either way. What's still on your bucket list?
What's on my bucket list? I think as far as the business is concerned, we Locamed is growing roughly at 10% per year. So we want to, and that's despite the challenges that we've been through, some of which I've mentioned. I think ultimately it's continue with that growth and just try and look for new opportunities within that business. As I say, it is a bit more restrictive now, but we're coming up with certain ideas as to how we can develop it further. So yeah, I think continue as we're doing for the moment.
Okay. What about personally?
Personally, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. I think in terms of quality of life, I think I've got that pretty much. Nice. as I like it. So the team's good. I like the fact that I'm able to dictate how my time is used and when I want to work or when I don't want to work. I think from a family perspective as well, it helps if you have your own business. Mm-hmm. Even when my children were young, they all just finished university and stuff now, so all in their 20s. But you have that opportunity of moving appointments quite easily and thinking, the kids take priority or they need help with this. And I think my relationship with them has benefited from that.
Nice.
So we are very close as a family, and I think it's because you have that opportunity to spend time with them when you need to. And I think you can manage work and personal and family life very well if you have your own business. You just need to be quite smart about it. Take the priorities, work out what the priorities are.
Give me one top tip that really helped you in that department, because that's a conversation I often have with other business owners. So what's one thing that really worked for you?
From a family perspective, I'd say my wife. I mean, my wife has been very, very supportive over the whole deal. Really, I mean, particularly when we started. I think when I started, I worked out that our income was going to drop to about 35-40% of what I used to earn, at least at the time. And we sat down, went to the figures, said, we'll cut back. We had 3 young children and stuff, and she was very good. She got involved in the business early on. She helped, and you do need to have that support.
Nice.
I mean, I would say it's easy, I think, to go wandering into the family and say, I'm starting a business, this is what I'm going to do, blah, 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 blah. But there are implications to that. I mean, it could be financial, it could be time.
Yeah.
It could be emotional, because there will be those difficult times where things haven't worked out that day, or you've lost that deal and it was quite crucial. So if you do need to have that support, without doubt.
I love that. What advice would you give 18-year-old James if you had the opportunity to go back?
Yeah, interesting. I think that's an interesting conversation, actually. Because my son works in the business, and it's an interesting one. I said, I don't know if it comes with maturity and so on, but I think when you're younger, you are very self-reflective, or you're not so secure in what you're doing and everything else. I think I would just turn around and said, you know, you'll get there, because I always knew I wanted to do something like this. But I couldn't quite see how that was going to happen.
Yeah. But
maybe if I told myself I would, I'd get there, I might put my feet up like most 18-year-olds do and probably never go out of bed. In fact, to be honest, you're right, I probably spent, at the age of 20, I think I was in bed till about 1 o'clock. So it's probably not. I think that in terms of opportunities, if you're doing it, I do think it's quite important. If you're working, you've got to work in the sector. If you like the sector and you're enjoying roughly what you do, you'll see the opportunity while you're working there.
Yeah.
You'll see something in the company that you're working for doesn't do it as well, or you'll just learn from it. You know, mine was in medical devices. Do I think that in medical devices? No. But I think with a lot of people, I would say, don't, you know, have a dream that you're like you do as a young teenager, possibly. I want to have a Ferrari dealership or whatever. I think just go into a sector, go into an industry with open eyes, because it ain't necessarily the product that you think you might get involved in or the service you'll get involved in. But from it, you'll see something and you'll think, oh, there might be an opportunity there. Or there's an opportunity there. You will find something. Every company has that. Every role, you'll find something.
Yeah, if you're looking.
If you're looking, yes, and if you want to look. I mean, that's another good point.
Yeah.
A lot of people are very, very happy knowing they do like a routine. I hated routine. I mean, luckily for me, I started as a sales rep, which is probably the best job I ever did in the pharmaceutical industry. And every day it's been different for me. And I think that fits my personality type.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like, you know, plans changing quite quickly, or they like to know where they're going or what train they're catching. And that's good. But for me, it was never like that. I couldn't do that.
So anyone watching this, and then either thinking about starting their own business or they've just started now, you've already shared a couple of really interesting, what I would class top tips or learnings that they can take away from this conversation. But what would your top 2 tips be for anybody just starting out in business?
What would my top 2 tips be? Don't overspend.
Okay.
I think be a bit tight with the money when you're starting a business. Even though you see the money coming in, just make sure you don't get carried away with over investing and expanding too quickly.
Okay.
There's a lot to be said for just reeling it back in a bit, building a reserve underneath you, and doing any kind of well, either taking the money out or expanding the business. Just do it in a controlled way, because I think I see a few businesses that go all out. You know, they get the unit, they employ a large number of people, and they're going from 0 to 100 miles an hour, and a lot of mistakes can happen in them, you know. And I always say, if you can, try and start controlled and build it up.
Yeah. Build the foundations properly from the get-go, and then you can expand on them.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Anything else?
If it starts, I would say it's right to be nervous about it. In fact, I'd say it's healthy to have a little bit of thought process behind it. But ultimately, go for it, because, you know, you'll always wonder, I wish I had, or whatever. And so I'd always say, give it a go, because there's nothing better. And I'll be frank, I think the quality of life I have now, from a fulfillment perspective, has been, you know, it's been amazing. And I wouldn't have changed anything really. Would I have changed anything? Might have changed something. No, but I can't think anything major.
What would you change?
I don't think, would I have changed anything?
You opened the door there, James.
I did open the door. There's always something that you could have done differently, but no, I don't think so. They're all minor. Yeah, okay. They're all minor.
Okay. Actually, I think that's a beautiful end point as well, because there's nothing better than someone reflecting through their journey and actually going, you know what, I've loved it so far. I still continue to love it, but I've loved it so far, and I wouldn't have wanted to do anything different. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. No, I think that's definitely the case. And it's like more about it. If it all ended tomorrow, I think actually I've had a great life, and the work part of it's always been interesting and exciting. So but I think the other part of it as well is the things like this, in passing knowledge. I mean, as I say, my son works in the business, but there's some young people working in the business, and even friends of the kids that want to develop their IT skills, I do make a point of trying to get them into sort of develop software programs for us, basic stuff, because I think trying to encourage the next generation is always the next thing.
Fantastic. The next generation is being taught and being brought up through the ranks
on a smaller scale, but but you're right. I think that's probably what I'd like to do. Probably more of as time goes on. So
there you go. Thank you very much, James, for your time, for your knowledge, for your stories. There's some really great learnings in this for anybody watching this. So thank you very much.
Anytime, no problem at all.
The link to connect up with James and his business are in the comment section below. So please go and do that. Let us know how much you've enjoyed this interview as well. Thank you for watching the Business Spotlight. Until next time.